Hello and welcome to the Tenfold AI podcast. I'm Heather Gertis, joined by Matt Scanlon. This podcast is sponsored by Promode.ai. Promode is the first ever end-to-end, all-you-can-eat content buffet AI engine specifically designed for B2B companies in the mid-market who want to replace a marketing agency, stop paying $165 an hour plus to an agency, and tap into enterprise-level AI for less than the cost of a part-time employee. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hi. I'm actually looking at your name. You got a title under your name somehow.
Yeah, I added that. You
Okay.
you can add one too. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll let you add one. Let's see. Actually, I can add yours here in real time. We'll see if it picks up in the recording. Go. Do you see it?
Yes.
Cool. We don't have your last name, but we can leave you a man of mystery. That's fine.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So it's been a hell of a week. We're going to talk about what's new in AI. We're going to talk about what we've been chewing on and thinking about here at ProMode, as we have mentioned in many podcasts before. And the reason we do a weekly podcast is there's just so much stuff happening every week in the space. We want to help business owners and interested folks stay ahead of the curve, grab hold of what matters to them, and throw out the rest. Avoid shiny object syndrome. So, yeah, what's new this week that we should be aware of?
Okay, this is what I'm really interested in. It is related to, hold on. My goodness. I think my mouse is lagging more than my mind.
I just got a mouse for the first time in probably 20 years. I mean, I've always just used the touchpad on my Mac, but just got a mouse yesterday.
Yeah. I had I was working on the floor once when we had just gotten a puppy, and I had a bottle of kombucha next to me, and she used to always wrestle with me every time I got down on the ground. So my trackpad got kombucha stuck all over it. So I've been in the mouse game ever since.
Mm.
Okay, so this is interesting. Again, who knows if this is true or not, but regardless, a search engine is appearing to start competing with Google. So Perplexity.ai, if people aren't familiar with it, it's I think they call themselves an answer engine. So instead of a search engine, they're an answer engine. So what they do is, if you've ever Googled something, the famous phrase with Google is that it displays 10 blue links. Inside, generally one of those 10 blue links is the answer to the question that you're asking. So what Perplexity does is it actually is reading the content on all of those links, and they are producing those results to you, in the form of a paragraph. So we'll summarize it, cite its sources. You can still visit the websites that gave you those answers. One of the coolest things that I use Perplexity for is one of the reasons. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this. Hold on. This is my use case of Perplexity. It's my new longboard wheels.
Mm.
You
Okay.
were making fun of me before we were recording. And then I just realized the last time I used Perplexity was related to the bearings on that. So one of the ways that I use Perplexity, and this is going to be related to search engine optimization and marketing. So this is,
Yeah, I know it is. Hit me.
yeah. So What I was wanting to do is I was wanting to be like, who, like, how do people clean these bearings on these wheels? And what is the best bearing for this setup that I have? I know that if I had gone to Google
You
and
would have seen a shit ton of ads for bearings to purchase.
exactly, I would, and the answers that I would have gotten would have all been through, it would have been a marketing agency putting just like fluff information about bearings, for whatever bearing company that they are working for.
Or maybe
Now,
a Reddit thread,
mhm,
series of Reddit links, yeah.
yep, exactly. And so I wanted to know, like, of the people who use this and have a similar setup as I do, what do they use? What do they recommend? So I go to Perplexity for stuff like that. Like when I really want to know, yeah, just stuff from real human beings. So on Perplexity, you can set your search filters where is this information coming from? Is it coming from the web? Is it coming from forums? Specifically, what forums do you want this to come from? And so Perplexity does a phenomenal job of that. So what I find interesting about, so it looks like Perplexity is in the middle of a round with an $18 billion valuation. I think there's a principle in business that it has been true for, there's a phrase associated with it that your margin is my opportunity.
Mm,
Effectively, as a company becomes a Goliath, there is a David that will come along. Like the bigger you become, the more leverage to one revenue stream you become,
mhm.
more disruptible you are. The easier it is to topple your business, the more success
Yeah.
you experience. Now, Google, granted, is like the poster child of the ability to pivot and diversify their revenue streams, but still, by a long shot, Google's revenue is coming from search. So here's what I find interesting about um, Perplexity. Eventually, Perplexity will need to monetize itself. And so, who knows what monetization looks like in the long term of AI empowered enabled search, but there will be some advertising that is sold on Perplexity. And here's where I think Google will really have to reconsider its business model. Perplexity right now, because they're being funded by VCs, they can burn their capital. There, as far as like head count compared to Google, it's next to nothing. So there will be a viable advertising platform for other early adopters that will emerge on Perplexity. So, for example, let's say in 1 or 2 years' time, we at like promo.ai, let's say we start thinking about a paid search strategy and we're looking at like cost per click. We're looking at like conversions and we're setting a budget. Well, if we're looking at Perplexity and Google, Perplexity is going to be incentivized to capture as much of our pay per click dollars as possible. And they don't have to support a massive organization with their with their advertising. And so we will be more inclined to look at Perplexity.ai if we're going to have a paid search campaign as opposed to a more legacy platform. If you recall, we were talking last week about this same phenomenon in social media paid advertising, where when it was first launched, I mean, this all of a sudden was a place where small businesses could throw a couple bucks a month at it. And I mean, like, generate 10, 15, 20 great leads for a couple $100. This is in the early days. Now, I mean, the last time I ran social ads, I mean, my lead acquisition cost was like $350.
Yeah.
That was like my total monthly budget when I first started doing that.
Yeah, it's not uncommon to have, $20 a click in Google. Yeah, those ROI numbers have changed drastically.
exactly. So here, I mean, it's going to be a lot more sophisticated ads that they'll be able to serve because they have much richer intent data from their users. So whereas Google has much simpler search intent signals. So is it like informational? Is it transactional, et cetera? I think it's like four categories. But here, all of a sudden, you have a company who from day one has been using semantic search intent, not only on the user's input, but on their output. So I would just imagine that at the time that they release a paid ad platform, the insights will be significantly stronger than Google. And because they're VC funded right now, they're just simply trying to capture market share. So the cost of that will be driven down tremendously.
Hmm.
So, I mean, just to see that they are raising around at an $18 billion valuation, again, doesn't even come close to touching Google's, trillion-dollar, corner of the market. But I mean, this is a legitimate play that might be able to capture significant advertising market share from
Hmm.
early adopters from Google.
For some reason, I'm thinking of Craigslist. So they never ad monetized. And I realize Craigslist is a very different animal than a Perplexity or a Google, but they never monetized with ads, but they sold certain types of listings. Like if you had a job posting, you would have to pay to post that job. Basically, if your post was business related, you were paying, but an individual could list a couch or list, whatever thing that wasn't your core business, right? You could list on Craigslist. But it was interesting because the posts that were paid for, the user didn't necessarily know that. That was between the platform and the poster, right? So I wonder if Perplexity might do something similar where it's not obvious that it's an ad, but it's sort of someone is paying for that to happen. Or the other thing that comes to mind is maybe Perplexity stays a clean interface, a research only interface, but then they are selling that data to third parties for things like retargeting ads on other platforms.
Well, interesting. So that you're saying they would be selling user search intent information. So on the input side, you're saying they would be selling that. Ooh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, selling to Amazon, selling to Google, perhaps, social platforms, certainly to target ads on customer research.
That's, yeah, I could see that.
I mean, that could already be happening. I
Hmm. Hmm.
don't know if we would necessarily know that. But what I'm really excited about with Perplexity, and this is what I tell folks that I talk to about Pro Mode, because this all kind of connects to our philosophy on the future of SEO, right? The AI SEO, what do I call it? EIE optimization. I don't know. I don't know if the term has been nailed down yet. What is so exciting about it is we have we're at this intersection of several factors. One of those factors is the age of the decision maker in the B2B space.
Hmm.
60% of B2B decision makers are millennials today. That statistic I found like 2 years ago, and I just keep remembering it. So I'm certain that number has grown,
Hmm.
right? So as that percentage of decision maker in B2B is younger and younger, meaning we've been using technology for our entire careers. We shop differently. We make buying decisions differently. We do different types of research before we make a buying decision. That is going to be key because what Perplexity does, and if anyone is listening to this and hasn't played around with Perplexity, I highly encourage you next time you are researching something, go to perplexity.ai, research it there. It is like the output is like a custom curated white paper for you based on the topic that you're researching, with citations, with evidence throughout. It is not ads. It is very, very high level, very high quality content. So just imagine, you're a B2B decision maker and you are looking for the best IT firm. What considerations should you have in mind, right? What questions should you ask to vet out the right IT firm? You're looking for a marketing platform. You're looking for an insurance company. Whatever, B2B solution you're looking for, you're going to go to Perplexity simply because the depth of information is very rich in that much time. So that's why we're so excited. And I'm super excited about the future of AI SEO and making sure our clients using Pro Mode are ahead of that curve, positioned to appear in those AI search engines like Perplexity. Am I explaining that well? That kind of
Yeah,
direct.
100%. Yeah, like I think your example of looking for an IT firm, I think was spot on. So the consumer at one point would be, I mean, not at one point, this is still happening today, but if you go to search for what should I be looking for in my when I hire an IT firm, you will be told what to be looking for by the company selling you their services.
Uh-huh.
That is how SEO has worked historically. Like in the example of the longboard bearings that I went to Perplexity for, I would be receiving an informational article from a company that sells bearings. So of course, the features of a bearing, I would just be learning about their entire product line, not the thing that I as a consumer want or need. Now all of a sudden we have a search interface where you can learn the things that you need fully objectively, and then take the step of, here are the lists of my requirements. Show me the companies that meet these requirements, as opposed to having the companies, whether or not they actually meet my requirements or not, they will be informing me of the requirements that I need. And oh, by the way, it just so happens to be everything that they do.
Right.
That is completely, I mean, that is why you see, I mean, if you're like in the marketing space at all, there's currently an absolute freak out over SEO and how those results are just being cannibalized by AI. And that is because, I mean, most digital advertising has been built on the informational intent being the way in front of a consumer. So like in your example of IT, that would be an SEO specialist would be writing that educational article where everything for that IT firm would be baked into that informational article,
Right.
instead of it being, truly informational. And that's a way that you could kind of cook the search algorithms, is that you're putting out these articles and it's so easy to reverse engineer it. You can look up, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this week, what are people searching for? They want to know how do I clean my bearings? Okay, awesome. That is now an article. We're going to reverse engineer what people are searching for to show that we are driving traffic to these websites. And the truth is very little of that traffic ever converted, because there was never an ability to say, this person is coming to a search with specific requirements. They're ready to make a purchase. What are those requirements? Here are the purchasing opportunities that meet those requirements. That's very hard to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the only alternative to justify SEO services would be to reverse engineer questions that people have when they're just trying to learn something. They may not even be a customer. In fact, 99% of that traffic had no chance of ever converting.
Sure.
And so, yeah, to your point, we're really thinking about, if you're a business owner, you want to sell more of whatever you sell. And so it may feel scary because you're seeing traffic on your website go down, but you're seeing traffic that was never going to buy anything go down. Wouldn't you rather have 100 visitors on your website that are there because they're likely going to purchase something, as opposed to 1,000 visitors that aren't going to purchase anything ever?
Yeah. Well, and I think the optimist in me also considers this. This should lead a better informed prospect, right? In a highly considered purchase, a high ticket B2B sale, for instance. A better informed prospect should equal a better client match for you as a business owner, right? And I would say, especially in the services arena of B2B, right? If you have, I'm thinking of one that's coming to mind that recently, became a Promote user. They saw content from us on LinkedIn. They were compelled to reach out. It was a one call close, less than an hour. Yeah, let's give it a try. This sounds so that the sales call was merely a confirmation that what he thought it was is what it is, right? Like he's seeing our content, he's poking around our website. He's like, okay, I think I know what this is. Yeah, I'll book a demo, confirm that it is what I think it is, and off we go. Like that is the beauty of a well informed prospect, right? They know who you are. They're looking for what you got. They knew the right questions to ask. And what that means is they're not going to churn out in 30 days or 60 days or 90 days because you're exactly what they were looking for, right? They didn't find you because they Googled how to get leads today and you bought a keyword at the top of the page. That's not going to equal a great client for a marketing company,
Mhm.
right? That's going to be a very volatile client who's probably going to bounce to the next silver bullet solution, right? But it's the same with any B2B company. It's like that better informed prospect is what you want. And yes, it's a pain in the ass today because there's a shift happening. You might be losing web traffic that you were formerly winning in Google because of these AI changes. But I think what we're going to see is higher quality of content that companies are producing, and not just the companies selling stuff, but these third party forums and third party, research aggregates who are like Quora, right? Like websites that are solely committed to education. And
Mhm.
then those things will lead people to your website because you're informing that prospect. Oh, I need this set of features to accomplish what my goal. Okay, now I'm going to go search for those set of features. Oh, look, there's ProMode or there's, your company that they're finding based on their need state and education, which means it's a lower sales lift for you. It's a better client long term. It's just that's the whole goal of search is optimal matchmaking. And whether that's a match of information or a match of a vendor or a product, it's just let's fit you well with what you need.
Yeah. I think it also opens up the door for companies to like have a vibe again.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine, like, okay, you have read all of those, like, okay, I'm just looking at your coffee mug. Let's use that as an example. You're like, how to choose the best coffee mug. You've all been on a search like that. What does it say? Drunk?
Okay. This is just coffee, but I just like this coffee mug. Made in Tulsa.
Yeah. So, we have all read those articles of like 10 things to look for when you're buying a coffee mug. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
fucking terrible.
Or the recipes that are like thousands of words.
It's so bad.
Yeah. Who made the first cornbread? I
Yeah,
don't care.
exactly. And like the reason that those articles suck is because they are juiced for this old way of search engine optimization. And so now if the content is the only thing that matters and it doesn't need to be reverse engineered juice, Like, because we're doing a semantic analysis on the articles. The search query itself is semantically matched. So then all of a sudden, you don't have to have all this proper placement of keywords and questions. Like you, who made the first cornbread? The reason that that's a subheader on that site right there is in case somebody asks that question. If they type
Right.
who made the first cornbread? That's
Yeah.
the only reason that that's in your recipe right there is because somebody is reverse engineering search terms to
Mm-hmm.
try to get you on that thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
like in instances, in one you were looking for a recipe and you got who made the first cornbread. In the other instance, maybe you want to know who made the first cornbread, but you got a cornbread recipe. In either case, there is just dog shit that you don't need that's
Right.
trying to hack this search algorithm. So now we enter into this phase where like an entire blog post or article has a semantic analysis done on it. Broadly, what is this thing talking about? What are the key points that they cover? It can be in plain text, no formatting, no headers, no meta description. It is a semantic analysis of your
Mm-hmm.
question and then that content. So what makes something stick out then? How does if somebody goes to that website, now all of a sudden you have room to be creative, to be interesting, to be provocative. You can talk about cornbread and just talk mad shit on cornbread if you want.
Yeah.
And like it can be funny, it can be inspirational, it can be whatever the case may be, but it can have an identity. Like the CEO of Jiffy can just be like, you know what, this shit sucks. This is all boring as fuck. Nobody likes it. Let's do some wild cornbread shit. And now there's an opportunity to do that?
Yeah. Okay. So I think this question I have might connect to that. I don't know. We'll see. How do you think what we're talking about right now, does it connect and how to like headless websites, dynamic websites? Because what I'm imagining, and I am not an engineer, an IT guru, I'm a dreamer, right? So what I'm imagining is the person who's typing history of cornbread or who made the first cornbread is a completely different person. Not only a completely different moment, but a different person, likely a student, right? An 8-year-old kid doing a paper on cornbread. I don't know. Than the person who's looking for the best cornbread recipe. And so if I'm the owner of that cornbread website, if I have a headless or a dynamic website, I could create a completely different design and experience, and it looks like a different website for each of those users. So, do you think this kind of like AI better matching of information to humans and the dynamic website, that those two things will play together and grow together?
Okay, I'm going to design this website right now in real time.
Okay.
If, let's say, fast forward 5 years and this is a thing, right? And this is like, from a technology standpoint, I mean, these things all theoretically exist, right? So, but there's just like not any set guidance, in the same way that we knew with like traditional SEO, an H1 is going to have a supremacy over other body text in that thing. So, we don't have that structure yet, but let's say hypothetically this exists. This is how I would design my cornbread website in this example. So let's assume that we have like smart pantries and smart refrigerators. And so we're like, the
Hmm.
person searching is aware of like their butter situation. I don't know if there's milk in cornbread, but let's say there is.
There is. I made it yesterday.
Okay. So let's just think about all the variables you as a person. Are you using a cast iron pan? Are you using like,
Dead.
okay, cool. So like there are all of these things. Is it nonstick? Is it stainless steel? Is it whatever? I don't know about fucking cornbread. I'm just
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah, yeah.
But so if I were to design this website and I had a cornbread website, What I would do is I would have some sort of like catalog of where you can find information on this website. And whether the pages are indexed, I don't know. I don't know what this technology is going to look like. But what I would do is I would send signals to this AI website crawler, and I would send signals to, and I would organize in the header. Nobody would be able to see it. In the head tag, I would say, like, does the user have cast iron skillet? And then I would tell that AI, hey, here's where to pull information from if this person is asking about how to make cornbread with a cast iron skillet. Um, if the person does not have butter, here's a section of dynamic recipes where you can, let's say, even pull in pieces of recipes that have butter replacements. So I would create a map that no human could see, but I would create a map for the AI and say, and I would provide as much high level specificity. Think of it like a table of contents for all things cornbread. So then that AI is going to come to my website, see my table of content, and then go through a sitemap and just assemble the pieces to serve it up. The reason that I would have that high level table of contents in there is that a company like Perplexity will be incentivized to keep their processing times low. So they will prioritize the speed and organization of back-end information on websites. So this is why I believe that the current SEO fluff that is out there, like the unnecessary H2 tags that are unrelated to the thing that the people are there for, that becomes just fully moot. You do not need those things. But if you're serving up an AI search that is provided by a company who is trying to keep its token counts as low as possible, and then all of a sudden, your websites are zinging in this like highly organized information, and you reduce the amount of tokens that LLM would need to process on your domain rankings will increase. Similar, like, so search engine optimization today, your page speed load time and your mobile responsiveness are two of the primary factors. Those have nothing to do with text or on page. That is just purely a speed thing on your website. Similarly, I think that websites that have high level, super organized semantic relationships that get further detailed, there's a compression layer where the number of tokens that LLM needs to process is much smaller. And then you tell it where to go and say, okay, process these 100 words. After in processing these 100 words, we'll tell you where to go get the information. And then serve that up to the user.
Yeah, so I mean, the logic doesn't change, it sounds like, between, old school SEO and AI SEO. And the logic is make it easy for the robots to find your shit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The difference is the way the robots found your shit in Google was very analog. It was the way I always imagine it is it's like there's these lights that are on or buttons, and those each indicate something a robot can read, like meta description, meta tagging, schema cataloging, how many backlinks, where are the backlinks. It gets completely lacking intent and emotion and value. It's just, is that button on or off? Is that button on or off? Is that button on or off? Something a robot could scan, identify, and then make a quick decision, i.e., ranking.
Real quick though, the major difference between the two things is the things that you're talking about are proxies for authority. So,
Right. That's what I'm saying. Right.
yeah, yes, exactly. So, like a backlink has no inherent value, but it is a very short piece of text that is a proxy to, like, oh, if there's a link on this website that's also on this website, it must be a good website.
Yeah, it's like a probability factor. It's like if it has this, it's likely to be this
Yeah.
because there wasn't a way to tell if it was that. So it's looking for those signals, which is why I describe SEO tactics as hacks. Like you are literally hacking the algorithm. And there's a process for that. And it's turned into a whole discipline of marketing in doing that. But that's what was necessary at the time. But with AI and with AI search, those hacks are no longer necessary, which is going to be amazing for the user. And it'll be a pain in the ass in the short term for the businesses who have these websites. But in the long term, again, it connects you with better people who need what you do, who want what you do, who appreciate what you do, which is what we all want in business, right? We want
Yeah.
clients who like us, who want to work with us, who value what we do. Like that's the dream. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited that we're on that journey and it's like drinking from a fire hydrant every day, just trying to stay ahead of it. And like, where are we now in this process?
I want to use an example. Let's use I'm not gonna, I won't name a client, but I just popped into my head the perfect use case of this. So our client is like a second generation family owned third party logistics provider, right? I, Matt, I start a a custom quarter zip pullover company, right? And I go to Perplexity AI and I type in something like how to set up drop shipping for a new apparel company. Okay.
Mhm.
So in that, because there is that search is now Perplexity is doing like a semantic understanding of my search. They will kind of do the math that say this guy actually doesn't know what he's doing. This is his first company that requires third party logistics. Okay. Now, in the old way of doing that, what would happen is I would get served up an article that is like how to do drop shipping for apparel. Okay. Now, in the new era of semantic search powered by AI, the likelihood that I am a brand new small business apparel company, I need third party logistics. I might now, instead of somebody having juiced their AI to get me to read articles and find a provider because they juiced apparel third party logistics, now there's this opportunity where it is like, okay, this is a new small business. This guy probably has no idea what he's doing. Family owned, second generation, high customer service. Like this company over here seems to be a great fit for people who are just getting started off needing third party logistics. It seems they're like customer service. You call the dude on his cell phone. This would be a great fit for them.
Mhm.
That's the difference between like semantic search and the way that search engine optimization has been done in the past. The likelihood of the vibe of what I need will match with the vibe of what somebody provides much more seamlessly. It just opens the door for you to tell more interesting creative stories on your website because it's now semantically indexed and matched with people who have semantic similarity requirements as your business.
Mhm. And hopefully it also means that all of the search traffic and leads, they don't just go to the top Goliath companies like Shopify, who would for sure buy those keywords, right? How to start a drop shipping apparel company. You're going to see 4 different variations of Shopify ads in that Google search.
Hmm.
Or, the biggest logistics company in your market. You'll you'll see those ads. And, my hope is that the mid-market, the SMB market, that there's more of a level playing field of like, no, let's get matched with the clients who are great for us. And the client who's great for, our 3PL user isn't necessarily the client who's great for their largest competitor and vice versa. So yeah, I mean, my hope is that these AI search engines do a better job of finding the value, matching the need to the value of a company, no matter their size or their ad budget.
Hmm. Yeah, there was like Yelp, for example. This is a really interesting thing. I watched this happen in real time where Yelp started to gobble up SEO for small businesses. So you had like local search is an area where local businesses can compete. This is before there was a separate algorithm for local search. So what started to happen is Yelp in Cincinnati, in Kansas City, in whatever, they started to gobble up all of the resources for in city name. So you would go there and you would be looking for a local business. Your top 10 results would be from Yelp. And so now you have all of these local business owners who got pushed to the second page and they're like, fuck Yelp. And then they started to boycott Yelp. They're like, okay, well, we're going to like all in mass, like all of the restaurants in this area, we're going to get off Yelp because they're cannibalizing our ability to directly connect with our customers.
Mm,
Search.
mhm,
Google sees that and Google releases a new algorithm that says, hey, we have a separate algorithm for when somebody types in the city name, and that is strictly reserved for real locations. Like you have
mhm,
to have received a postcard from Google to participate in those results. It is a very it's exclusive but free. And then you saw what happens. Review traffic and even paid ads or activity from the businesses went from Yelp to almost exclusively Google Places. Google came in as like, okay, here's an opportunity. Yelp is pissing all of these people off. So they're all going to get off of and so now really Yelp is pretty much only used by people going to a different city looking for a restaurant.
mhm.
It is no longer a place where people are looking for mechanics, that Google has exclusively taken that from them. And that is just purely because this old way of doing SEO could be gamed.
Back to Perplexity, what's the difference from a search research perspective? What are the kind of fundamental differences between ChatGPT and Perplexity?
Well, so ChatGPT can search the web. So this is what I know of Perplexity is only from the interviews with the founder of Perplexity. So you can maybe take this with a grain of salt. So this is according to the founder, the scraping of the results occurs more real time and more dynamic. Whereas it would seem, and this is like from my experience using deep research and using chat gpt, it would seem that a lot of the results from a web search using chat gpt are sort of cached results is what it appears to me. So anytime I've done any type of research using ChatGPT where I want it to crawl the web for results, it seems the sources of those results seem to be a pretty limited band, which leads me to believe that OpenAI has probably cached like TechCrunch, for example. Like, you know what I mean? When I do research, there's like always a shitload of results in ChatGPT from TechCrunch. That leads me to believe that OpenAI is probably caching a lot of the results. And so that the answer to that question when asking ChatGPT to crawl the web, a lot of those results I think might be coming from a cached or cataloged version of those. Whereas with Perplexity, it's kind of like going out into the wild with every new query. There's a layer. You ask a question and it is actually turning your question into a new search. So it's like doing a semantic analysis of the question itself and then creating a search tree from there. Whereas
Mhm,
it would seem that OpenAI is saying like cornbread, here's sort of our like we use all recipes, we have cached like the biggest players with the most amount of data on it. It seems that those results are cached in OpenAI. Whereas with Perplexity, it would actually be like, what does this person want to know about cornbread? And then I will go look, within my token limit, I will go look for those specific requests about cornbread. I
Hmm.
don't know if that makes like it's kind of doing a bad job, but I think it's that layer of reanalyzing your question and then doing the search layer, as opposed to it seems that OpenAI is retrieving from results that have already been scraped and indexed.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Very cool. So anything else happening in AI you're excited about this week?
This one, I don't know if this is, we'll see. So this is kind of related to where does the training data come from that you're using? So the idea is, let's see if I can get there. If you think about a large language model as, okay, I don't know if my audio comes through here. There's a funny video. Okay. People that are watching this, there's a funny video that a friend sent me yesterday, and you can, like, you've heard of 1000, right? From Space Odyssey. It's the AI that controls the ship that people are, right? And so the famous line is like, "Open the pod bay doors, Hal." And the whole movie is kind of like this commentary on AI, where Hal 9000 has been given this Hal 9000 has been given this directive to has to get these astronauts to this planet, to this like obelisk, you know. That's the only instructions that it's given. Well, some, hijinks ensue on the spaceship, and Hal is programmed to fulfill his directive. Well, he's never told that these astronauts need to arrive there alive, right? And so basically, just Hal analyzes the situation is like, wow, if these dumbasses stay alive, we're never going to get to this planet. So I should kill these astronauts. That is the highest likelihood of them arriving on the planet is if I off these guys. So there's a video where it's like if 1,000 were Chat GPT. So everybody look up that video. It's hilarious. But so yeah, basically the famous line in the movie is like the astronaut is out like in the vacuum of space and says, "Open the pod bay doors, Hal." And Hal is like, "As a large language model, I cannot," like, and just goes on and that is not a part of my training data.
Uh-huh.
Things like that. The responses we've all gotten from Chat GPT.
I see.
So it kind of highlights, so this story about China. So the issue is somebody translated the results in both English and Chinese and was finding that the answers differed quite a bit when you received answers in Chinese. And so they've got all of these requests and how they differed in English versus Chinese. And this is kind of the interesting takeaway to me, is that the Chinese text that the model was trained on is highly censored. So the source data that it was trained on is incomplete. There's the misunderstanding is there might be something nefarious going on with the results that are served up. But the simplest Occam's razor answer to this thing is that the source data that this model was trained on was censored. And so it's like conceptual understanding of information is incomplete. So when it serves up Chinese results, it is pulling from an incomplete data set. And when it is producing English results, there's a different data set. So it's not that somebody is saying, "Hey, don't put out this information about Tiananmen Square," for
Mhm.
example. It is just in the English language compared to Chinese, there is a significantly more complete data set on Tiananmen Square than in Chinese.
Hmm.
So you're going to have different results coming out of it. And so to me, what makes this interesting for just the average person out there who's an AI user, there's two ways that you can use large language models and AI. Well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways, but like broadly, there's kind of a split for the average user. One of the ways that you can use it is as a source of facts. So I get answers to questions here. Tell me about Tiananmen Square, right? So yeah, let's continue using Tiananmen Square as an example. Tell me about Tiananmen Square. And so then the LLM will give you information on Tiananmen Square retrieved from its data set. Another way that you can use an LLM is as a computer. So you can use an LLM to process existing text instead of asking it to retrieve text for you. So if I were to do this, let's say I had a spreadsheet that I made. In that spreadsheet, it was time and date stamped occurrence of everything related to Tiananmen Square in the 24 hours leading up to the massacre and the 24 hours after the massacre. I upload that spreadsheet to ChatGPT and I say, like, analyze, like, what are the decisions that led up to this massacre at Tiananmen Square? Like, tell me about, like, what are the implications of this afterwards? You know, whatever the case may be, but you're asking the LLM to be a computer for you. You're not asking it to be a, you know, what's the word? What's the word? Omnipresent source of knowledge. This example of the Chinese language reproducing information incorrectly is a perfect example, I think, of people's misunderstanding of where the real value in large language models lies. Remember, these things are trained on data from the internet. Like it's not, there's really no way of validating its source data. So by and large, it's fairly accurate. I mean, like the first release of ChatGPT was on Wikipedia, which is a real clean, like reliable set of data, you know, but then as it started to scrape more information, it becomes muddy.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's the cynic in me, but, you talk about the Chinese, the data set was not complete and there was censorship happening in the training data phase so that they don't have to do censoring in the output phase. Correct. But I remember when ChatGPT first came out, there was a lot of talk of it being biased, of, you know, biases being pretty apparent in using it. And I think that was because the training data was Wikipedia. And Wikipedia has always been fairly biased, depending on who you ask. Yeah. So is ChatGPT as biased today with how OpenAI has continued to train their models or, new training data? Do you think the LLMs we have access to are biased when it comes to like a worldview, conservative, liberal, pro America, anti America, like the hot topics? Are these LLM biased in your opinion?
That is a great question. Okay, so there's a few factors. So you have post training also. So there's there's one thing where you've got the source data. So let's just use Wikipedia. We'll keep it simple. You gobble up Wikipedia, right? Then in the post training phase, there is a step where you have humans saying, what conclusions is this thing allowed to arrive at with access to this training data? Meaning, inside of Wikipedia, you have like the rise of the Third Reich is in there, right? And so somebody might, so like in the post training of that, even though you have a factual record of the rise of the Third Reich in Germany, in post training, you might have somebody say, do not arrive at the conclusion that this was a great thing for the world. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's the thing that occurs in post training. So in a way, you're like, is that bias that's being introduced into the model in that post training is to say you are not allowed to arrive at the conclusion that the Third Reich was great for the world, right? That is technically bias being introduced into the model.
Yeah.
And so this is where, like, this is the thing that I am like probably most passionate about people understanding is that and I think this is probably, I mean, I know, like, man, I know, like, Elon is like nuclear right now, but I do think that he has the right idea in mind with how he's approaching Grok. If people look to an LLM for bias or facts, I think they're missing the point of the technology. I think people would be better served to not outsource their knowledge to these things, but to rather outsourcing the processing of that knowledge. Outsource, like, you as the human create the ideas, create the variables that you want to test, create the ways that you want to test those variables. And then I think that you should have access to a wide open model to process those ideas. You know what I mean? So, like, if I wanted to take the position that the rise of the Third Reich, while horrendous things occurred, it was a net benefit to the global population. And let's say I wanted to explore that idea and I went to retrieve data and hypotheses and all of these things, and I brought this to an LLM that was fully neutral and just processing my concepts and chain of thought, I think that I arrive at much better output and I'm much better for the experience of doing that. I think that people are misguided when they outsource bias or knowledge or factual acquisition to an LLM that they would have much more powerful and richer experience if they outsource the processing, the manual work of, like, not, I mean, not logic, but like logic
Critical thinking.
processing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, have a hypothesis, know how you want to challenge that hypothesis. What do you want to test it against? And then go to the LLM and ask it to help you with the processing of that.
Yeah.
Approaching it like a computer is the absolute right way to approach these things.
Yeah. I think there's something definitely there, and it's like, the danger of using AI as a genie in a bottle, or imagining like Zoltar in the movie Big, right? Where you just approach it and like some oracle, some Yoda, right? The danger of that is if you don't have your own critical thinking skills honed, you won't know what variables to plug in. You won't know what factors matter in your question, right? And you won't know how to process that information once it's delivered. It's just, I guess this is it. But you do have to filter with your own reasoning, your own logic. Am I considering all necessary factors? And I think that's the danger of giving kids access to AI and having them use it in, primary education. We've talked about this a little bit, but you don't give a first grader a calculator and have them run math problems on a calculator. You teach them the core concepts, the core principles of mathematics to know what numbers even go there, to arrive at the answer. And it's the same with LLMs. It's like these kids have to learn how to write and read and spell and kind of, run basic critical thinking logic trains of thought in order to accurately or safely even use these AI tools.
100%. It's like it requires a more Socratic way of thinking. I mean, to use your math and calculator example, because I think it's perfect. Like, a kid needs to go get 10 rocks. They need to go out in the yard and pick up 10 rocks and then come inside and, like, take 4 rocks away. They need to understand, like, how the concepts of numbers work. You have this many things, you add, you subtract this many things. This is what this means in the real world. You got 10 fingers, I cut one of them off, you got nine. Like,
Right.
just grasp that concept. Once the general concept of how numbers works is ingrained in you, then use a calculator. And I think it's the same.
Yes.
I think we need to be that same way with our linguistic processing, where like language in our brain is this like it's a recurrent calculator going on in our brain. Some of us have fucked up calculators, but nonetheless, we are using language to process logical thoughts. We use it to project ourselves into the future, anticipate future outcomes, to consider the past. This is all occurring with language inside of our brain. So if we
Mm-hmm.
don't have a third, like a third person view of how those operations work, how my logical processes lead me to believe that this thing might happen this afternoon or next year, or my actions today might lead to this. If we don't have that basic understanding, then you're right. That is like giving a kid a calculator without understanding what it means to have 10 rocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think of my own kids and their, schooling, and in elementary school, it's all about word problems, which is great because that's the real life application of math is in a word problem,
Mhm.
if you will, right? It's like, I don't know if I should, I don't know what numbers to type into my calculator if I don't know how they relate to my problem. And so having that core understanding is critical. But I mean, I realize we're kind of waxing philosophic here, but I do think it's important. And I think for business owners and older folks who might be listening to this, I don't think kids are going to listen, and that's fine. I think the older generation is more older than 30, let's say. I think they are more apt to do well with AI tools than they realize. And I think that's the message I want to say here is like if you are in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and you're in business and you're like, AI, I don't know technology. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to learn another thing. What I want to say is, no, this is your time for technology. Why? Because you have the core foundation, you have a worldview, you have ethics, you have critical thinking skills to know the right questions to ask and to filter those responses appropriately and do good things based on them, more so than the younger generation. And I think we need to see a lot more mentorship, and parents need to lean in. And I'm speaking to myself here too. Like, we have to make sure these kids have a good foundation of good thinking skills, good question asking, know when something is right or wrong, ethics, right? Because the tools that are at their fingertips when they enter the workforce are magnifiers of those things.
Mhm.
It's like when you use an AI chat interface, it is revealing the evidence or the absence of critical thinking
Mhm.
in the outputs you get. Would you agree with that?
100%. Okay, I'll tell you a story. I was visiting my primary care physician this week. We're talking. He goes, "Hey, how's business? How's everything going?" I'm like, "Great, great, great." And he goes, my kids downloaded Chat GPT on my phone for I would say he is probably early 60s, let's say. Very not technically inclined whatsoever. There's this very interesting thing. So he pulls it out and he shows him. He goes, you can just have a conversation with this thing. So he's using the app. He's got the voice on it, and he's, "Hey, how are you?" And he's like, "Can you believe I'm having this conversation with this thing?" And he goes, and he asked me, he goes, "How do you change the accent on this?" And I go, "Ask it." And he's like, "Speak in an Australian accent." And then, it changes. And so he does that a few times. We continue talking. He's from Europe. He travels back to Europe all the time. And we're talking about Portugal. He then pulls out his phone again and he goes to Google and asks Google, like, what is the GDP of Portugal or something like that? And then Google gives him the answer. He then proceeds to have a conversation with me about Portugal's investment in technology infrastructure as a result of a GDP decline on the heels of the Great Recession here in the United States. And so I told him, I was like, that right there is the thing that you should be thinking about AI. Like, you should be applying that logic. Like, use ChatGPT to explore the implications of Portugal's declining GDP as it relates to their investment in technology infrastructure. Like, you are coming to it with a salient logical thought as to, like, what are the knock-on effects of it? And I'm like, now you use ChatGPT to check your logic, to like pull in other factors that might have affected this investment in technology infrastructure.
Mhm.
And and so like that is a perfect example of somebody who just recently got hip to the idea. Such a small part of his life has been lived where you can actually know the GDP of Portugal at any given moment.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you have, because you had all of these skills of never having access to this information, let alone some, you probably find a million opinions online as to what led to these factors. Now you can apply human logic with ChatGPT to help you with just the manual tasks of that, and have this like rich understanding of like causal relationships between ideas.
Mhm.
Like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, those are the people we need to be looking to for how to assemble ideas and hypotheses. Because nothing, one of my biggest fucking pet peeves in the world is when I hear somebody be like, I asked ChatGPT this and it said that. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like an incorrect answer, right?
Mhm.
Like, I asked ChatGPT if cornbread had milk in it and it said no. AI fucking sucks. You have no, like, you're using this as like a dumb Google, right? Like, that is not what this is for. That is not how this thing is used.
Right. That's so funny. So very cool. I could talk about the social impact and, generational differences in AI use forever. I just find it so fascinating. But let's kind of bring it back to business owners, the shiny object syndrome. I found a LinkedIn post a couple of days ago that I sent to you, and it was so validating, as a founder of a company in a newly founded category, service as software, software as service, this new category that we're in. It can feel fairly lonely at times, right? Because we're not, we're applying AI to marketing, but we're not a software tool and we're not a marketing agency. We're kind of this new in between thing of a highly serviced software platform powered by AI. And we found this LinkedIn post where this other founder was talking about this business model and what he's seeing in the space. It was very validating because he's talking about the benefits for our business model in something we realized a long time ago that, we can service more clients better with a slimmer team, right? And save our clients a lot of money and solve business problems. Let's see if I can find that quote that I loved so much about learning, like customers don't want to learn your tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop forcing
Stop.
customers. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Their philosophy, meaning companies like us, stop forcing customers to learn your tool and start solving their actual problems. That's the beauty of, before companies like Promode existed, that was why you would outsource various departments of your company. You'd outsource your marketing, outsource your HR, outsource your bookkeeping. You would do that so that you didn't have to learn what they do. You could just have them handle it. They would solve your problems. That's what we're doing with Promode, right? Like zero entry technical skills. You don't have to know how to code. You don't have to know how to prompt an AI. you just have your problem solved at your fingertips in a way that's really, really easy to manage, right? And so he's pointing out, the benefits of the business model for the founders of these companies like ProMode and his company, higher margins than an agency, happier clients, right? Increased volume of activity, all of those things. And it was just very validating to see that happening. And something I kind of realized or put more words to in my head was that if you're a business owner in the mid-market, you're B2B, and you're saying, where do I start with AI? What's a solution I can plug in and benefit from AI, see some ROI, and feel good about being on this AI trajectory? I'm not missing out, right? I'm taking part in this future. And I know I'm biased as a marketer and a Promote co-founder, but I really think the best place to start is your marketing. And here's why. So when we demo ProMode, we are scraping publicly available data of the company that I'm demoing, right? So let's say you are Bob's Roofing Company. Before we ever hop on a call, before you spend 1 minute, $1, right? Before you exhaust any mental energy at all, I can show you your content being generated by ProMode in real time over a demo. And the reason I'm able to do that is because we can create these custom demos that are fed your publicly available data. So the decision-making time, the lift on the prospect side is so low. It's like, yeah, I'm seeing my content right now. Do I like it? Do I not like it? If I like it, let's go. Let's give this a shot. Why not? But if we were ProMode, the outsourced HR company, if we were ProMode, the AI powered, supply chain platform, I could not show you that proof over a demo because that data is not publicly available. I would have to build the trust of the prospect to get you to give me some of your data so that I could run a demo. And this is how enterprise software works, right? Like big ticket software, like a Microsoft interfacing with a $3 billion multinational corporation. They're building that trust. They're getting data. They're running demos. It's talking long sales cycles, lots of decisions along the way. So that's the beauty of using AI for your marketing first. Am I explaining that well?
You're doing a great job. I mean, I think the thing that business owners need to know is there is an inevitable future coming where if your business data is not accessible to and used by AI, you're living in the Stone Age. Like we're hurtling towards that future. And that is so just broadly speaking, I think business owners really need to be thinking about in the next 5 to 10 years, my data needs to be structured and stored in a way that AI can access it and take actions on behalf of my business. And you hit the nail, like marketing data is the best for that because it's already structured. First off, it's publicly available. So it's safe and everybody is using your data except for you, dude. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, let's be honest, you are the only one that is not leveraging this asset. The entire internet is leveraging it and you are not.
Hmm.
So first off, let's aggregate that data, store it somewhere, and use it to save money, to generate revenue, because everybody else is generating revenue on your data except for you.
Hmm.
Secondly, publicly available marketing data is highly structured. If it's on the web, it's in HTML. If it's on a social platform, it is stored in JSON. It is all highly structured, super easy to use. You don't have to do anything. Like to get that set up, it's already structured. You don't need to pay 750 grand to $1 million to have a data scientist come in and clean up all of this unstructured data. It's pre-structured, it's a scrape, it's stored, it's useful. And now that you're using ProMode, that data is being added to. It is being compounded. You've got like you're putting your company's data into an index fund that is now paying you compounding interest and generating new data that is not in the public domain. This is the key right here, is that you are storing the what becomes the source data for your promoted content, but you now have versions of it that are new. And so like these are your dividends that you're getting paid out of this. And so like who knows? Like the sky is the limit. It's like with each new release of a new model, a new tool that comes out, all of those tools are going to need structured data to use them. So at the point that we get to sales enablement and nurturing a list, you now have all of that data available to use to take those actions. So, and third, marketing content is fairly safe. Like you don't give a fuck. You've already posted it on LinkedIn. What do you care if that leaks? I mean, it's like not a scary thing at all. So you're
Mm-hmm.
paying for these, like you're just paying for simple encryption in the way that your email is encrypted, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I mean, we don't have like you can add users to your promote account. We don't need their fingerprints. We don't need all this multi-factor authentication. Like these are all things that are publicly available. So it's like very basic security protocols cover your bases. It doesn't need to be HIPAA compliant. There's no financial data. There's none of that. No personal identifying information. It's all out there. So
Mm-hmm.
it is like the safest, most seamless way to begin to aggregate your data to be used by AI, which you should absolutely be doing. Like
Yeah.
I cannot stress that enough. Think about tools in that way. That is what the future is going to look like. The sooner you get on that train, the more you start getting that compounding interest on that data.
Yeah. I love it. No, it really is the low-hanging fruit of AI adoption is your marketing. And the reason you don't want to use a Chat GPT or a Claude or a Gemini to generate your content and run your marketing is A, it takes too long. It's highly siloed. You still have to copy and paste and put it in a social calendar and create a strategy and orchestrate that strategy. You still have to do all of those things. So it might be a text factor, but it's certainly not a 10x, which is our standard, right, for AI adoption. If you're going to adopt AI, it should produce a text outcome, a tenfold outcome. And the other reason is if you're using ChatGPT, if you're using Gemini and Claude, you are not building an owned database, right? You're tapping into a tool with your prompt, you're getting something, it is a transaction. You're building the database of the LLM, correct?
Mhm.
But you're not owning a database. And with ProMode, with retrieval augmented generation, with our processes, we are building an owned database for the client. With machine learning that's getting better and better and better and optimizing for performance, optimizing for you liking it and approving it. Like all of those things are growing. So it's a long-term investment that will continue to bear fruit for a long, long time.
Absolutely. Yep. You hit the nail on the head. And I mean, there's another point in there also, like using Claude or Chat GPT. I mean, you're bumping up against context windows almost immediately. So like the amount of information, even if you knew how to properly format and feed specific information about your company into those tools, you are just bumping up into very real limits about what you can tell this thing about your company, the formats that you can give it. It just is going to be it's a much cruder output, just in general. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
all those things you're spot on. It's like the businesses really really need to be thinking about just the future of data management and access by AI. It's coming. It and like the sooner you kind of like start thinking about okay, I had coffee with a friend. He is a president in a like a multi-billion dollar company, and we had coffee the other morning, And he was like, "Hey, what are you working on?" I was telling him about this image handling and cataloging that we do for our clients. And he was telling me, "Yeah, we went through this big initiative at our company where everybody was trying to like have a central repository. I think they were using SharePoint, have a central repository for all of these media assets that we get from different projects that we do and things like that." And he's like, now we just have this giant bucket of terabytes of media assets that nobody knows how to find anything inside of it. And like, that is a perfect example of like, that is crazy that that database of assets does not have a semantic search layer to it to where you can just find anything that you need at any given time with a single search.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We've got some like mid-market companies that are clients of ProMode that have like 10x more sophisticated asset libraries than this multi-billion dollar company simply because these companies have chosen to have like start thinking about their data being accessible to AI models. And now all of a sudden, these things that you need at any given time by anybody are immediately available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the findability is huge. I think companies have been frustrated with that for many, many years. Sitting on mountains of data that's disparate and, nobody can find it. It doesn't talk to their data doesn't even talk to itself, much less to anyone else or anything else. And I love your definition of one of your definitions of an AI chat interface is it's a conversation with your data.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
But you can only do that if you have a database that
Right.
is connected to AI.
Mhm.
You can have that conversation with your data, with your marketing data, with your accounting data, with your operations data. We're serving the marketing aspect. And again, saying it's the low hanging fruit, the easiest to adopt, to turn on, to turn off, to benefit from. It's, zero entry ROI, really.
Exactly.
But those other departments, solutions are being spun up like Pro Mode for other company departments, and it's exciting.
I agree. This is a great time.
Yeah. I feel like we kind of danced all around the AI dance floor today.
Yeah. Yeah, a little do
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. Cool. Well, I think that's a wrap for this week if you do too.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Well, this has been the Tenfold AI podcast. I'm Heather Gerdes, joined by Matt Scanlon, a co-founder of Promo.ai, the first ever B2B AI powered marketing platform that replaces the need for a marketing agency, a marketing strategist, an internal marketing team. Quickly and easily run your marketing at Text Impact in as little as an hour a month. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.